It's Cardboard Time, episode number 56, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Fork, and then we are going to have an interview with Grigas of Zephyr Workshop and talk to him a little about Aegis. Just to provide you a little mini Shelf of Shame update, not too much to talk about, but it is at 142, and the only update to that is a game that I did not previously count, so it's kind of like cheating. I had a little bit lower count than I should have, but Vamp on the Batwalk is a relatively new member of the collection. I did get it last year and just never put it into my collection stats. But I did get it played this weekend. So the reason I found out was that I went to go and put my stats in and couldn't because it wasn't in my collection. So very interesting, again, trick-taking game. We're going to be talking about Fork, which is another trick-taking game. But this one was reminiscent of trick-taking combined with Hanabi. Very interesting concept I did terrible at, but nonetheless still very fascinated about. So we will talk about that a little bit on a future episode once I do get some more plays. I'm just trying to kind of still wrap my head around it and see where it lands for me. So my mailbox has been very light. I do have some games that are coming in, but I do also have some fairly major events coming up. So we'll see. We'll see whether or not I actually get some gaming time in within the next couple of months here as we get into 2023. So speaking of 2023, a release that is coming up and a Kickstarter that is up this month is Fork. And Fork was designed by Ta Te Wu. The art is done by Lily Chin and Ta Te and published by Sunrise Tornado Game Studio. So Fork is standing for Fox, Owl, Rabbit, Kale. And it is a 2 to 6 player trick-taking game. Now, the goal of the game is to capture animals or kale in the food chain. So in the game, players are going to take turns leading the trick. The active player calls the suit or the terrain, and players must follow if they have the cards or play a fox because it is wild. When playing a card, players must play kales, face up, and everything else face down. After all players have played a card, reveal all cards and resolve from the highest number to the lowest. The player who played the fox can score an owl or a rabbit. If the owl survives, it can score a rabbit, and so forth. There can be more than one player scoring a card per trick. When a player has 5 scorecards, the game ends, and the player with the highest score wins the game. Now, in a 6-player game, players are in a team of 2, and then the team play is optional in a 4-player game. And this does actually have a 2-player mode, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So this was a review copy that was provided by Ta Te. Glad to have gotten it. Sad that it took me this long to get it to the table, but it's been getting quite a bit of table time recently. And I did play this at both 2 and 4 player counts. And I was definitely a fan of this at 2 and also 4. And originally I thought that I was going to be more of a fan of it at 4. It actually, I kind of like it at 2. It's a fun little dynamic where you're playing 2 cards instead of 1. And your own cards can't score against each other. So it provides a very interesting little dynamic, between and basically playing mind games with your opponent. So I really like that. I was very surprised at how well it played, and it's not something that many trick takers actually do well. It's just a real handful that I can think of that really kind of hit that sweet spot with 2 people. This is a small box game, size of a standard card deck, and very portable, very easy to bring with you. And this was very easy to teach, but there was also enough depth to keep me interested. And I think the overall theme that I really want to get to here is that this is, quite honestly, the game that I wish that I had to learn trick-taking concepts. I struggled with trick-taking as a kid, and I've talked about this before, where I had a lot of issues really picking it up and understanding it. A lot of trick-taking games were played all the time when I was in Scouts. It was kind of the thing to do, a lot of people sitting around, and I always felt kind of left out because I never really grasped that concept of trick-taking and when do I play what and how do I understand when to play different things. And this game would have made that process so much easier. This came out to the table very easily with my different play groups that I tried it out with. And, a lot of the same feedback that it was very easy for people to jump into. So this is definitely more of a family weight game. But, your more experienced players are going to enjoy it as well because of the different dynamics and how everything scores. I really, again, like the mind games that you have to play with your opponents. And this was really reminiscent of a game called Snow Time that I haven't talked about on the show before, I don't think. But, you have these higher cards that wind up scoring the next highest card. So you can have some very low cards that wind up scoring as well. And that always provides for some very interesting play. So I really do like those eliminations that happen higher in the food chain so that people who played Cal and thought, well, this is what I got and this is the only thing that I can play, or can actually figure out when to play it strategically, they can still score those cards. So I really like that as well. So for my final judgment, as always, I like the small box nature of games that really do provide a nice little experience in a small box that's portable, that I can bring out at a pub or at a friend's house and not have it take a huge amount of space. Those do tend to get to the table quite a bit more. I loved how easy it was to teach. And it was a very nice family weight card game that will be sticking around on my shelves. This has gotten a significant amount of play lately in my different play groups and will probably continue to be a good opener, good filler, or a good game to bring out for those lighter occasions as well. So this is coming out to Kickstarter this month. Very happy to see that, and you can go check it out if you are interested. It is FORK or Fork, Fox, Owl, Rabbit, Kale by Tate Wu. Well, stay tuned because coming up, we have an interview with Breeze Grigas. Well, welcome back. On today's episode, we're joined by Breeze Grigas of Zephyr Workshop. Breeze is most well known for Aegis, combining robot strategy game, which is a thematic light war game where teams of 5 combining robots fight in quick matches. Breeze, welcome to Cardboard Time.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Well, I feel like this interview is a long time in the making. We've been talking about this for quite a while, and now I have the absolute perfect reason to have you on. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But why don't you go ahead and give us some background on who you are, what you've worked on, and how you got into this industry? Because I always find that we have all sorts of guests that have different origin stories. So I'm fascinated to hear yours.
Well, let's see. So, my name is Breeze. It's my actual name. I was born this way. And I went to college for game design, video game design. I actually wanted to be a character artist. grew up playing lots of Japanese RPGs, and I wanted to do that. So anyway, I went to school for game design, and I kind of fell into board game making through that. In the last semester of our senior year, we made Aegis as like a capstone project. It was originally like a paper prototype for a video game, and then it kind of evolved into a board game. And then we built the board game like 3 times. We self-published it, and we like self-published it again, and then we went through another publisher to make like a cool like big like official version of it. And we learned a lot of our board game industry stuff that way. And then we got the game back, and we did our own Kickstarter in 2017. We got a bunch of money there, and we used that money to rebuild the game basically from scratch again. And then in late 2018, we came out with it, and it was pristine and beautiful, our beautiful tactics game. And then it sold out in like a year, and then the pandemic happened, and now I'm here. We're making Aegis 2, the sequel standalone expansion to our first game. But yeah, I kind of just due to my capstone project in college, I kind of ended up deep in this industry. Aside from having my own company, Zephyr Workshop, I also through Zephyr Workshop, we do contract work for like other publishers. Like I've been working for Hasbro recently on some stuff, and then IDW and a few other companies like that, working on board games in all sorts of capacities.
Well, perfect. And I want to tell everybody kind of how we met, because I feel like it's an interesting story where we first met at Origins in 2019, and I was working on a game called Thriftin', which I've talked about on the show before, with Justin Peters, my often co-host. Not so often anymore, but hopefully we'll be getting back, to having him co-host soon. But I was doing Thriftin'. He was working on his game called Titan. And we did a publisher speed pitching session, which was probably the most intense 2 hours I've ever participated in my entire life. Where basically we had our game set up, and then all the different publishers were going around to the different tables, and we would go and pitch our game, and then the publishers would give us feedback whether they were looking for something like that or not. And you talked to Justin, who was working on his game. You got excited about it, and you said, "Hey, stop by my table. I want to show this to somebody." So you took his prototype game, and you ran halfway across the convention center in Columbus to show his prototype off. Meanwhile, I sat and I'm like, well, I'm here. I might as well sit down and play Aegis. And normally I was one back in that time where I would ignore all the publishers towards the back, because I was like, whatever, I was interested in the big publishers. And that was such an experience that taught me that you cannot ignore the publishers in that back area, because they have some really cool stuff. And I bought one of the last Kickstarter copies that you had available at the convention, because I'm not a huge wargaming fan, but the appeal of just how the gameplay flowed, you're rolling a huge amount of dice, you can combine your robots, there's a lot of cool strategies, and it was really easy to pick up. And, that's what I really loved about it. So fast forward to the pandemic, and then PAX in 2021. You actually showed up at an event that was like a publisher and media networking event, and we got reunited. We got to see each other again, and that was really cool. I looked a little bit different than I did at the time, but we became reacquainted and started chatting and everything, and we've crossed paths many times since. So that's kind of our history of how we got to know each other. And I just found it fascinating. I wanted everybody to know why I said up front, this has been years in the making, because it literally has. And yeah, I always love that story. I tell it to a lot of people, especially when I'm talking about you in reference to a conversation that I'm having with somebody else. I'm like, yeah, you got to hear this story of how we met. And they said, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, no, the Titan was lit. I still think about that game. I do a lot of the publisher speed dating events at a bunch of the conventions. There's always one at most of the major conventions, and I'm technically a publisher, so I like to go and I like to see everybody pitch their ideas, and I'll try to actually give a lot of helpful feedback and stuff to fledgling designers while I'm there. But I see a lot of the games, and Titan's definitely one that actually stood out to me. Like, it's like co-op deck builder, Shadow of the Colossus. It was just really, really cool. So yeah, and yeah, I always try to, if I see anything cool at a convention, I try to run around and advocate for it to some of my publisher friends. It's actually how a game called Champions of Hara. I was at a publisher speed dating on behalf of our Aegis publisher at the time, and I got him hooked up with our publisher, and then he ended up working for our publisher, and now he's like the head of Arcane Wonders. It's like a change of lives.
It's crazy.
But yeah, no, this is cool. I have to make it back to Origins one of these days.
Yeah, it's home for us. I mean, it's kind of our home convention, and it being so close, about 2 hours away. Depending on where I wind up after this move that I'm making, it's probably going to be a little bit further, but it's still home, and it's still like the place where I feel all of this really got started. And it's interesting because the slogan of the convention is "Where Gaming Begins," or was, and literally, that's kind of where this whole journey of mine began, was back at Origins. And yeah, just fun convention. Really love it. Kind of chill and good food.
Yeah. Origin was the phrase that my friends thought up. Origins is for friends, and Gen Con is for capitalism.
Yes, absolutely. And some people this week, with the announcement that they made, might consider that, additionally, much more so. We won't talk about that. So why don't you give us a rundown of Aegis 2? Why do you feel the need for a second game? Because this is like a sequel, but I'm going to let you talk about it.
Yep.
Why the need for a second game?
Well, let's see. Let me start. Aegis combining robots. It's a tactics game. It goes now 1 to 6 players because their new box has a solo mode. And you make a team of 5 robots. You fight against each other. There's 5 different types of robot: assault, evasive, guard, intel, and support. Spells Aegis. And then you can combine robots of different types together throughout the game. Put an A robot with an E robot, make an AE robot, and you can put like 3 or 4, even all 5 of your robots together to make Voltron. And the original box that we came out with had 100 unique robots in it, so you can build 1,000,000 trillion different teams. And we spent like I was saying before, we spent a really long time on that. Went through like a lot of like versions and iterations before it finally actually factually came out. And what we ended up delivering was a lot better than what our Kickstarter advertised, which was very good. But it's so. Why are we making Aegis 2? Well, we've been working on it for pretty much as soon as Aegis 1 came out. We started working on Aegis 2, so it's been like almost like 5 years now, or something ridiculous like that. We've been working on Aegis 2 all through the pandemic and stuff. We have number one. We have like a long-term plan for Aegis. We're going to do 4 or 5 boxes. One's going to be it's going to look like the logo by the end. It's going to go red and blue box, blue and green, green and purple, purple and yellow, and then maybe we'll loop back around and do yellow and red. But we wanted mainly, though, after we built Aegis, we spent all this time building Aegis, we have all these assets and all these templates and all this like infrastructure on our end to just build another Aegis. There's all the tools were there, and it was theoretically easier than building a new game from the ground up. So that was the one fact. That was like one factor. Number two is we have all this stuff that we are looking now that as soon as we shipped Aegis, it's like, well, okay. What can we... And we started getting all the player feedback and things like that in the ensuing months and stuff. And it's like, well, how can we do better? Because like Aegis 1 was our first published game. I think it came out really, really well. But there's still like all the things that you couldn't put into it that you wanted to put into it. There's a lot of things that I think we could have streamlined a little bit more. Some fonts were too small. Some of the cards have too much like stuff on them. And we really wanted to do a game that is a faster, more accessible, more affordable war game, like, your battle techs and your war machines and things like that. And I wanted to kind of like run that back. I basically wanted to run Aegis back and just make a even better Aegis. And they're completely cross-compatible with one another. It's like a LCG sort of model, so you can mix and match all the new robots from Aegis 1 with Aegis 2. Even though we've streamlined some rules and done sorts of other like quality of life improvements, boxes are completely cross-compatible. We're also reprinting the first box in this new Kickstarter also. So we're going to be reprinting the first game and redoing the second game. Because at the moment, Aegis 1 is an eBay game. Like, you just can't find copies of it anywhere. If you see a copy on a shelf somewhere, it's a rarity. So you should pick it up. So we're going to do an improved reprint of Aegis 1. People who own the first edition will have an upgrade pack for them, for any cards that we change and stuff. And then Aegis 2... What's in Aegis 2? Aegis 2 is going to have 100 more robots, so 200 robots total, assuming we do decently and we hit all of our like minimum stretch goals. And we're going to have the cards are simpler and cleaner looking. There's less stuff on them. The abilities are more interesting. We play into more interesting aspects of Aegis's combat. You get the more luck mitigation, more things that trigger anyway. Even if you miss your attack, you'll get like some sort of refund or some sort of other bonus when you miss attacks, because we want to make sure that there are as many feel-good moments in the game as possible. Really played up combining. We have a few different zany new things for combining robots in the game, triggering multiple abilities, combining from like distances and under various circumstances. And then the two new modes. We have the smaller 2-player board that unfolds into a 4-player board. We have this innovative 3-sided board in the new game. Board also has pre-printed terrain on it, so setup's faster. And then you have 2 new modes. We have a solo boss battle mode, worked really hard on. We wrote a big blog post about our design process for it on Board Game Geek. It was my first time building a solo mode from scratch. Really cool. And then a new mode called Starpoint Arena, which is kind of like a checklist of things addressing like critiques of like the first game. First game was like a little snowbally. With the core rules, because you start with 5 robots, you're going to start with 5 robots, and as soon as you start like losing robots, you start losing resources. New game's core mode is Starpoint Arena, which is a mode where your robots always revive. You don't lose opportunities and you don't lose resources, and you're just trying to reduce your opponent's sort of health total to 0. And you can capture points on the board and activate special abilities on the board and things like that, because another request was like more interesting things to do with the board and to do with positioning, so we put that in. So robots revive, cool stuff to do on the board. And there's also the turn orders different. In first Aegis, you would move all 5 robots, and opponent would move their whole army and back and forth and back and forth. In Starpoint, you move back and forth one piece at a time like chess, so it's a little bit more thinky, a little bit more meaty and robust. But, standard Aegis deathmatch mode is still in the game. And we have redone some things with that too, so it's less snowbally. And so yeah, it's we wanted to just add more content to the game, give you more reasons to do stuff with your first box, and really like show that Aegis's core rules are really good. So we wanted to play up that. um, so the yeah, because Aegis is inherently a good game, and then you can put as much content on it as you want. We can make a lot of robots and a lot of new abilities and things. We can have it be and just give you all sorts of new opportunities to play the game with, and that's good. And also, we had a budget this time too. I did almost all
Hey,
the robot art in the first game. So yeah, 100 unique characters to play as. I drew, I think, about 80 of them or more, and then this time we had a real art budget, so we have a whole team of really amazing artists. So just Aegis 2 just looks better. The production quality and like art quality is just like so significantly higher than the first box. I still do a lot of the concept work and art direction and stuff, so it actually still looks very cohesive with the first box, and all the artists' art all look cohesive in the Aegis like style and universe. Um, and that was also a key goal. But yeah, Aegis 2 is pretty faster, simpler, leaner, meaner, prettier. Uh, just good game. Soloer.
more solo is always good.
Yeah.
For in my opinion, anyways. I'm a big solo gamer, so that really interested me. The fact that I think you got to kind of do a love letter to your original game, and still be able to incorporate the original game into the new game and kind of make it better, respond to feedback. you know there's there's a saying that I've heard in the board gaming industry that you will never have as many playtesters as you do on the first day of your game releasing. Like you can play test and play test and play test, but that first day that a bunch of people get your game, they're all going to play test.
Yep.
So you have to make sure that you've got a solid thing to put in the box, and you definitely did. But there's just things that you can't go through and foresee in that. And I love the fact that you've been able to take that feedback and then make this new project, with that, in this universe. I think that's such a cool thing, and kind of rare, for the industry.
Oh yeah, it's really funny. Like when you release your game, you play test, play test, play test. Your game is a prototype, prototype, prototype. Then you release your game, and then your game's release version is actually just a prototype for the second edition. Like the testing never stops. Especially like yes, I definitely want to make probably some simpler games after Aegis 2 for a little bit, but especially with a game like Aegis and Aegis 2, where they have so much content, there's always going to be like something. Um, Aegis is actually pretty well balanced for a game that had 100 robots as a first, release for a first time designer. Uh, it's not incredibly busted in any way, and but yeah, it's there's always like things that you can with these content wide quote unquote games. Yeah, there's always something. Uh, but yeah, so we wanted to kind of like really look at what people's critiques were of like the core gameplay modes and the core systems, and what did people want from the game that really didn't like meet expectations in the first game. We really like tried to roll a lot of that into the second game. And it also a lot of stuff and because of that, these new modes and these new maps and stuff you can play on, it'll recontextualize a lot of the content from the first game too when you play it with that. Like solo mode, you use a boss card, and there's like a whole bunch of different bosses that we've designed, and then you can also make a deck of minion robots for the boss, and so you can use all robots in the game can be used as minion robots. So you're looking at your pile of 200 robots. If you really want to cathartically sort and like theory craft boss teams to fight against, we now have that option. Now all these robots that might be like not that great when you play them, like in a head-to-head mode, they might be like really good to play against as like a minion in solo mode, or they might be good against certain bosses and things like that. So we give you like all this toy box of stuff, and like Aegis 2 is really all about giving you really good like little playpen to use it all in, and kind of like an intuitive way.
Love a good sandbox there.
Yep.
So I want to talk about conventions for a minute because, going back to how we met, and you're definitely well known within the convention scene. And I think one of the main things that you're well known for is your personality. You are probably one of the most energetic and dynamic people that I've ever met at a board game convention in my entire life. But I think that also plays well and is almost a necessity, especially when you're a publisher that wants to sell something and wants to get people at your table and wants to get people excited. I think you need that kind of personality to go and sell a product. And would you agree with that? Have you
Oh
found
yeah.
success through that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like even before our game, like long before our game came out, we'd like go to conventions and we'd like pirate a table at like PAX East and like the free play area. And it's just like, and you just like sit there, you stand there the whole weekend, you engage passersby. Hey, cool, check out my robot game. And you have to be, you really do have to be like enthused about the thing you've made, and that'll make other people enthused, and they'll make them want to play it, and eventually it'll make them want to buy it. Because if you're excited about it, it only helps. And that's really what going to convention is. That's really what going to a convention is all about. You're in this giant building with 50,000 people, 3,000 competing products all around you, and you have to really know your game and be excited about your game and really believe that your game will add something to these attendees' lives that nothing else on the floor will. And yes, it's about being in that mentality and really selling it to people, especially when you're in a pretty niche game, and like you're like selling a niche robot game and you're also like in row 40. You can't, and like in a 10 by 10 booth, like we'll never, I don't think we'll ever actually end up, even if we got very big and very successful, I don't think we'll ever do more than like a 10 by 20. It's such a money sink that I'm not.
It's such a huge cost.
Yeah, it's you have to make up for the fact you don't have a building sized booth with enthusiasm. As long as people can see you, and as long as your game is cool, you can get people at your booth, and that's the philosophy.
And I think one other way that I've seen you kind of be able to be successful and to have the ability to make Aegis 2 is building a community and building a presence and engaging people. So it's kind of the same thing, but not necessarily at a convention. Doing that offline and building this community of people who really are enthusiastic about your game. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it really is just about engaging, right? So before and after and like during Aegis 1's release, after our first failed Kickstarter in like 2016 or whatever through our old publisher, we started doing like Twitch streams where I would just like do art and like finish up and polish off some of the art in between our next Kickstarter, which was like 6 months later. And that's kind of like where our community building like really began. Like we were doing lots of conventions before that, but we didn't have like a Discord server or anything really. We had like a Facebook page. But we started building community that way because I was the creator of Aegis, so I started doing Twitch stuff. People could watch me draw, listen to smooth jazz, and that's where we actually met some of our first really good friends and fans. And then during our first Kickstarter, that's when we actually did our Discord. That's when we started the Discord. And then like after the game came out, we were doing like tournaments and leagues and keeping people engaged. You know, I go into the I'm in our Discord every day. I'm posting, I'm replying, I'm joking around, and you know these people. There's so many things for these people to play, right? And do with their time. And you really have to cherish each and every fan that you have in this world. Because, yeah, they could just be doing anything else, talking to anybody else, playing anything else, thinking about anything else. And anyone who spends even a second of their day thinking about your game of all things, you know, they're they're blessed. They are blessed chosen ones, and you need. And I like to treat them that way, and I love them all. And that's like what it is. It's just showing engaging, showing appreciation. But paradoxically, it's really hard to build a community unless you have a successful game, and you can't really have a successful game without a community. And it's really like just building a campfire. You have to like get that tiny spark that like kind of like goes up in flames, and then you have to keep the flames fanned and going.
I love that analogy, by the way, because I think it's absolutely perfect. You know, it does require somebody to take an interest. You know, you lay down that foundation, and somebody does take interest, and then another person takes interest, and you know, you keep building on that and produce more content and keep stoking that flame. So I really love that analogy. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, one other thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to your product is the collaboration that you've done across the industry. And I think a great example of that is somebody that we had on the podcast, I believe it was last year, Chris Solis from Solis Game Studios, you know, and his product, Pocket Paragons. You two have collaborated quite a bit with each other. And I think that is something that we see a lot more willingness to cross over IPs within the industry more than a lot of others. Why do you think that this is important?
Oh, it's so important. Like not a lot. There's only so many. Building an IP, building like a brand is so hard in any medium. Building a world, building characters, building identifiable visual design that people will care about, and getting your stuff into other people's stuff and vice versa is kind of like it just gets it in front of more eyes, and especially in front of eyes of people who might also like your games. Like, you know, Chris, I've been working with Chris for a couple of years now. We were both hitting the convention scene for level 99 back in like 2018, 2019 or so. Where he was the level 99 games marketing manager. You know, they make like BattleCon and Exceed and all sorts of other like anime competitive games. And I was like just hitting the road with him. And eventually when Chris left level 99, he made Pocket Paragons. Well, Brian McKay made Pocket Paragons, but Chris, I guess, formally made Pocket Paragons by publishing it. And this whole that game's whole premise is, you know, it's a crossover game. Every box is a crossover with a different IP, and you know, I'm at arm's length. I have a bunch of characters. I have a bunch of art assets. Let's do that. And you know, it's a similar type of game. And then right around the same time, we also did a crossover with level 99. So just some Aegis stuff and Millennium Blades' Collusion expansion. There's an Aegis deck. That's cool. And then now this other game coming out called Iconoclash, which is like a Smash Brothers sort of fighting game on a table. One of our characters is in that too, and level 99 characters, and I think Solis's characters are in. Yeah, Solis's characters are in that too. So it's actually and our brother Ming's React game. His game featured a level 99 character on their Kickstarter, and the incestuous anime board game amalgam. But yeah, it's like because none of our companies are really big enough to like penetrate like mainstream markets, and we all have very similar like overlap of fan bases. So we should all of their fan bases should all be aware of each other's games. It just helps all of us. And I think that's been just a really cool experience. A lot of people now know Aegis just through Pocket Paragons, and they'll come up to our booth at a convention and be like, "Isn't this Pocket Paragons?" I'm like, "No."
But, no, and let me tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool. But yeah, I always love doing crossovers. Trying to get an Aegis character into level 99's Bullet. I've been barking at that door for a while.
Yeah,
it's very important.
I think level 99, we need this.
Yeah,
just saying. I'm a big fan of that game. It's fantastic.
We're going to do an Aegis character and React Brother Ming's game, and we're going to do that event at some point. And back when Brother Ming was making a game called Sento Arcade Fighter, which might see the light of day eventually. It's one of the coolest games ever. It's on Board Game Geek, SENTO. But yeah, it's really cool, and our another Aegis character was going to be in that one. And yeah, it's glad because we're all small. We're doing when it comes down to it, we're all really just doing this for fun. So you want people to see your OCs.
It also helps again with that community building and looping back to that community building. You're tapping off of each other's communities, which I think is beautiful in the fact that, some people who, like you said, might not have known about your product can then find out about your product through them and vice versa. And I think it just helps build that community between, each publisher that, it's such a cool synergy that you have between each other. So I really love seeing that. I thought it was really fascinating. Mm-hmm. So what exactly do you do when you're not creating games? I mean, the 2 seconds that you spend not creating games, what do you like doing outside of the hobby?
Well, most of my day is spent mindlessly browsing social media and internet forums. I wish I had hobbies. So yeah, no, I remember every day I think about back in high school when I actually did things with my free time and social media didn't exist to siphon my limited life force on this planet. I play video games. I used to play a lot of Magic. Don't really play Magic much anymore. And then I play a lot of JRPGs, and not a JRPG. Well, I guess technically an RPG that is Japanese. I spent a lot of time earlier this year playing freaking Elden Ring. I lost a lot of
people did.
I lost a lot of my life to that game, and now it's made me appreciate linear games. After Breath of the Wild 2, I'm never playing an open world game again. It's like, I'm done. So, played like Triangle Strategy. That was a really good one this last year. I like a lot of that really informed me getting into board games too, right? Because like JRPGs are just interactive. They're just board games of video games, like turn-based games. And you get into board games and you're like, oh wait, I know how to deal with action economies and lining up combos and things like that. I learned this. I learned this from Final Fantasy V. So yeah, I like turn-based stuff, and I consume a lot of media. Watch a lot of anime, a lot of cartoons, read some manga. Just got finished watching the new Gundam series. It's very, very. I'm very much enjoying it.
It seems very on point for you to enjoy some Gundam content.
Oh yeah, no, I guess I didn't really talk about this, but yeah, no, I'm a fiend for giant robot media. So every giant robot anime under the sun, I've seen and consumed and absorbed into my persona, and that has led to the creation and continuing development of Aegis.
So, what's on your table besides Aegis right now?
Well, we have a bunch of other games that we're making that maybe we'll be able to release when I'm not in robot hell. And One of them's called Flora Fiora. It's a co-op game. It's cute. It's about flower people.
Oh, I like flower people.
Yeah, it's cute. We've been working on it for another umpteen million years. It has like it's gone through a lot of different genres of game, but it's a co-op game. It's an adventure game. You're gonna roll some dice. You're gonna fight some baddies. You're gonna go through a little campaign. It's kind of like it fills a similar hole to that game that came out that just now, Vagrant Song, but it's smaller footprint MSRP sort of thing. It's cuter, and then we have a couple other games with that similar aesthetic going on. You know, a game called Uproot Arboreal Battleship. I always wanted to make a spaceship combat game, but space games are boring. So this game has tree spaceships that are trees, and takes place in kind of like the same universe as Flora Fiora. And so you have like the alien species, the obligatory 4X like alien species are like these flower people, and it's cool. It's very aesthetic, and that's actually a functioning game that works and is pretty all right. We can finally maybe kick it into high gear one of these days, and then other than that, I'll probably loop myself into working on Aegis 3 if our Kickstarter goes really well. I'm just gonna, as soon as Aegis 2 ships, Aegis 3, baby, another 5 years of my life. But it'll be pretty cool. We already have like some skeleton stuff, and I like core concepts and like a set design for Aegis 3 all lined up, and we have all these great artists now that I can just immediately start, shoveling money if Aegis 2 does really well. And so maybe the development time for Aegis 3 will be even faster.
Well, you probably, hopefully, my fingers are crossed here, but hopefully you won't have a global pandemic, kind of interrupting you in the development between 2 and 3, as opposed to 1 and 2.
It definitely stymied us a bit. Like our testing ability went way down because we would just get lots of our testing done for Aegis 1 by just going to events and having randos play the game, and we would get a lot of important data that way. Whereas like Aegis 2, for that whole pandemic, we got lots of artwork done, but like the testing slowed down like immensely because we just can't. There's like nobody around, and like we had the tabletop sim version, but then we would be playing pretty often with like our Discord community members and getting lots of like good balance development in, but like in terms of the very important like usability and learnability testing that came with going to events, that was like that coronavirus really cut into that.
Yeah, a lot of people wound up having to pivot, and we've heard some pretty interesting stories of, different things that people did to try to combat that. But, it was a tough time for everybody to get things to the table, and a lot of people, either stopped working on projects or, wound up having major delays because of it. So, it's good that we're kind of somewhat at least back on track. And hopefully that continues. We don't have any more huge setbacks, so we'll see how that goes. So, how can people follow you on socials?
Let's see. We have a link tree, so you can go find us on Linktree/Aegis Robots. Go to our website zephyrworkshop.com. That has all of our socials on there, and because we're on Twitter. We have a different handle for everything, so it's like not very uniform. But our Twitter is Zephyr_workshop, and that's where I think most of our posts are happening on a day-to-day basis. You can see my unhinged marketing ability over there, and then we have our Discord, which you'll be able to find our socials if you find one of our social medias, you'll be able to find the rest of them because our link tree is linked on all of them. So yeah, go follow me on Twitter.
Absolutely, and I'm still looking for the person who took just cardboard time, at cardboard time, and now I have to put the underscore in. Darn you. I will find that person. I will have a stern talking with them. I usually say that just about every episode now. So
Twitter.com/cardboard time.
There you go. Don't go to that one. Go to underscore cardboard underscore time.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah, no, I tried just twitter.com/cardboard time. Somebody took it and they have like 5 followers and they haven't posted since 2019 and it makes me upsetty spaghetti. So, well, again, Breeze, this has been such a long time in the making, and we definitely will be doing this again, hopefully for Aegis 3 or, something a little bit sooner, hopefully. But thank you once again for coming on the show. This has been great, and hopefully we'll be seeing each other at a convention this year so that we can chat some more. Your Kickstarter launches today, if I'm not mistaken, January 17th.
Yep. January 17th.
So go check it out, everybody. Breeze, again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me.
And I think that's going to do it for us today. Make sure to check out our website at cardboardtime.com. Our Instagram and Twitter are at cardboard_time. We are on Mastodon at cardboardtime at tabletop.social. And any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.